These are a little bit harder to read, but we felt these were pretty straightforward. And these are the remainder of the health department area requirements. Heck, I'm going to have to put on my glasses to see that. But these are simply like having sanitizer at the front of the building. We felt that was pretty straightforward. All parties and guests must be, or all parties and tables must be 5 guests or less. Joe, one thing we have had some questions on is the strongly encourage or suggest customers wear a cloth face mask anytime they're not seated at a table. This is not a requirement, but some people have asked, can we require it for people to come in our building? Can we say to keep our employees safe and have the business make the choice to require it?
Yeah. I mean, there's no reason why you can't make that business decision. Other businesses that are currently open have made that decision. And so if your business wants to do that, then absolutely. But it's not mandated. It is strongly suggested, and it certainly would help during this pandemic, but it's not required for customers. And I'm sure you'll talk about that regarding employees in the next section.
Yep, I think we will. Sam, here are kind of the remaining health department requirements that came out from the governor's office. We felt most of these were straightforward. Were there any questions that came through in the chat room that we can take a minute to clarify here while we have Joe on board?
Yeah, there was a great question. If a family comes in and they're a family of 6, does that family have to then sit at 2 tables? And then another question that has been asked is, are restaurateurs and staff in charge of enforcing these guidelines of social distancing and not talking to their friends? Because this operator works and lives in a small community where everyone knows one another.
Well, I can tackle the first one. And the first one is a question I think that we had, for a while now when we just were even discussing these requirements. From a health perspective, that that family is living together, they can certainly dine together in public. However, the letter of the requirement says 5 guests or less, and I think really need clarification on this one. And I'm not sure, WHA, Julia, if you've asked that question or not. I know Sam and I had conversations about that a long time ago, but this is what came out, was 5 guests or less.
Yeah. Yes, and at this point, what we understand is the 5 guests is very solid, right? It's just 5, period. Even if you're a family of 6, you would have to make sure that there's no more than 5 people at a table.
Okay. And then what was the second part of the question? Sorry about that. Oh, I'm sorry about friends and friends and family.
Some if guests are like walking in to their table and they see neighbors of theirs and they stop to say hi. Our restaurants required to be the requirement, the hammer on moving guests along.
I'm going to just go out on a limb and say no. I don't think that's appropriate. I mean, I think again, there's a lot of education that needs to happen, and so you just have to educate. And I think that if it was to become the point where everybody's moving tables around and they're all trying to sit next to each other, and you have parties of 12 people instead of 5, I think it's a different conversation. But just someone stopping by and saying hi, it's happening now in places that are currently open. And I just don't think that you want to get to the point where you're trying to police that like that. But emphasizing education and making that point. Maybe, again, I know we're not popular. It's not popular to have signs, but just somehow to remind customers that, please respect social distancing requirements during this, time or whatever. But as far as actually you putting the hammer down, I would recommend against that.
Okay. One question I got here, Joe, is on buffets and salad bars. If you have a buffet or salad bar, can an employee go and fill that up on behalf of the guest and bring it back?
We are asking that question as well, because an initial draft of the document allowed employees to do that. And this one, there's just a lot of discussion back and forth. And I think in an interest of time to get this out, that right now they're not permitted. That's why there's this part about addressing through subsequent interpretive guidance. So we've asked about, when and who will issue the subsequent interpretive guidance. But I would say that style of service, meets the intent of this. If you actually, stocked a salad bar, but it was not open to customers, it was clearly not open to customers, but a food employee was serving up salads from that. I don't see any reason why not. Social distancing is being met. It's going to be, it's a touch point that's going to be disinfected like every other touch point. It just happens to be a touch point by the employee. I would think that would be fine. I think the intent of this is for self-service. We are going to have to get a little more clarification for sure on this, but I would think, again, as long as it's clearly, if you have customers that are confused and going up there and serving themselves, then I'd say shut it down. But if it's clearly where the employee is the only one doing it, then I don't see why that would be against these requirements.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to agree completely with what Joe said. There was a lot of conversation around salad bars and buffets, and I think a lot of a level of discomfort around how that would work. And the conversation was getting rather complicated around salad bars and buffets. And so in an effort to not hold up the rest of the guidelines, made a commitment that we would continue to have the conversation about salad bars and buffets.
Okay. Julia, would that include dim sum carts as well?
We did not have a specific conversation around that. I wonder if that's something Joe might have.
I mean, just again, off the cuff, these are questions that, we are seeking answers to. This is pretty much brand new requirements. But if an employee is taking that around and serving the food, I don't see that as being a problem, but we should ask for clarification from the governor's office. But again, it's not self-service, and that was I think to me, the conversation that was had was about self-service and those issues. But if it's an employee in complete control of that food, that to me seems to be the point where you're limiting the amount of people touching a surface, and then also limiting. I mean, you want to keep it away from. Well, actually, it doesn't matter. I mean. It's not foodborne, so coughing and sneezing on food isn't as much a requirement. But it's much more the congregating at the bars, as well as the touch points was the concern of the self-service. So if it's an individual cart going around, I don't see an issue with that. But we should get clarification, and that's something probably we should explain somewhere in guidance to make that clear.
Sam, any other questions on the health department area before we move on to Pam with L&I?
One more question was from the quick service sides. If you have a grab and go section, is that still allowed? And whether or not they should discontinue that?
A grab and go. Let me look. I'm looking at this. Buffets and salad bars are not permitted. Grab and go. I would say that the key to any of those is that social distancing is still happening. I mean, that you're making sure that people are 6 feet apart. And that any touch points that are involved with that grab and go need to be disinfected at the same frequency as all of the touch points. And so keep that in mind in your plan as you start thinking about a kind of a sanitation plan. What are customers touching? But I would think that still meets. I still think that would be okay with social distancing and a sanitation plan, because again, the intent of that is for customers to walk up, look at something, maybe make a quick decision and grab it and go. I would think that meets the intent. We will, I think, if I can see Julia's small picture, she might be taking notes, or someone's taking notes about that question. But it seems to meet the intent of, as long as social distancing and sanitation are met, then it should be fine.
Right.
Okay. Sam, any others? Or can we go ahead and move on? Joe, as always, you're a great partner to work with. We've worked on food codes together, clarifications, foodborne outbreaks. And it's always good to know that we have a wide open door with the state health department, and we can figure these things out together. So you're welcome to listen.